Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about recent news coming from the Iran, where the Iranian government has basically postponed its plan to basically impose the hijab laws that were applicable on the women and girls of the country. Now, what was this hijab law against which we have seen a large scale protest, and why the government had decided for the time being to basically restrict the imposition of this law? Let us try to understand this in more detail. Now, before going into this particular topic specifically, if you take a look at the geography of Iran, we know that Iran is a country situated in the West Asia. As you can see from the map here, it is surrounded by major water bodies such as Persian Gulf in the south. Then you have a Strait of Hormuz. If we talk about on the eastern side, it is surrounded by two major countries, that is Afghanistan and Pakistan. Further to the northeast, you have Turkmenistan, and toward the northern side of the Iran, we have again another major water body, that is Caspian Sea, and then you have the Caucasus region where you have Turkey and Azerbaijan. If you look at the west of Iran, it is having a border with another major country that you have Iraq. Now, why we are talking about the geography here? Because generally if you look at the prelims question which is being asked in the UPSC, they ask such places in news which has been in the news because of the current development going on there. So, that is where the questions can be asked about this. Now, let us try to understand what is the current issue and why Iran is in the news. Now, the National Security Council of Iran, that is also headed by the Prime Minister of Iran, it has put the brakes on implementing the law that is referred generally by the name of Hijab and Chastity Law. This Hijab and Chastity Law was to take into effect on the last Friday, but its imposition has been basically, we can say, stopped. Now, in this regard, this sudden pause has resulted because of the large scale protest that emerged, and the protest did not only erupted in the Iran, but even the Iranian diaspora living in other countries of the world began to participate in the protest. Not only that, many European countries, their governments and the human rights organization have questioned the rationality of the law, and they have said that this is basically a law that is trying to limit and restrict the freedom of women in the Iran, basically 50% of the Iranian population. This is something which is not only being said by the human rights organizations or the civil society or the women, but even the Prime Minister of the Iran, that is Masoud Pezeshkian, he has agreed that upon looking at the law, he believed that there is ambiguity, and before the implementation it need to be reformed, and that is why he also have said that the implementation will not be done. Now, let us try to understand what basically was the legislation. First of all, the legislation's main objective with which the implementers were trying to pass it was to promote or inculcate a culture of chastity and hijab in the women of Iran. And if suppose women and girl of Iran, if they are involved in promoting what they believe to be the nudity, indecency, unveiling or improper dressing. Improper dressing here basically means that as per this law, every woman and girl has to ensure that her head is properly covered, her shoulders are properly covered, and also her legs below the knee are properly covered. If any of these parts of bodies are not fully covered, then in that case it was believed to be a promotion of nudity, indecency or improper dressing. So, that is how the law has defined the proper dressing. In this context, if you take a look at the Article 37 of the law, what does it say? It says that if anyone is involved or accused of promoting such kind of indecency or improper dressing, especially to the foreign entities. What does foreign entity means here? Very recently, one of the Iranian singer has streamed her live performance on the YouTube where she was not wearing the hijab. So, this kind of behavior is akin to unveiling herself to the foreign entities, and this is something that can, if a person is accused and is caught, she can get 10 years in prison and fined as much as 12,500 euro. So, it was a very restrictive, not only in the public, in the Iranian space, but also in the virtual space. Now, those people who have been committing this crime for several times or who have been classified as repeated offenders, for them the penalty is much more higher. They will have to pay a fine of almost $15,700, and interestingly, even flogging can be given as a punishment to them. If you talk about flogging, flogging is something that is very common in Iran, and generally the people who have been given life imprisonment or death sentence before the execution, they are flogged in the public. Flogging means beating on the skin by the body or any kind of what you can say instrument we can say. So, such people who are repeat offenders, they will have to pay penalty as well. They can be flogged in the public, and then their imprisonment can go for as low as 5 years to as far as 15 years. So, that is how we can understand how restrictive and extreme kind of law the Iran was trying to pass. Now, most interestingly, there is another section in the law called as Article 286. This Article 286 terms something that is called as corruption on earth, and those people who are involved in this crime, they can even get death penalty. Now, what is corruption on the earth? Corruption on earth has been referred as the instances where the Iranian women and girls have shared a video of themselves unveiled with the foreign media or engage in peaceful activism. They could face potentially face execution. That means if they are engaging in the activism where they are promoting anti-hijab protest, where they are talking about not wearing hijab, and not only by themselves but also promoting such kind of behavior by inspiring and influencing other people, or they have unveiled themselves in the front of foreign media, as we have discussed the example of YouTube. In both the cases, the punishment can go to as far as the execution, that is the death sentence. And the another article, if you try to understand, is Article 60, where it not only punishes the guilty, but it also punishes those people who have been or has supported the accused. For example, anyone who is trying to basically intervene by being arrested by the morality police of Iran, who is largely responsible for enforcing the hijab laws and all that. In that case, that person, does not matter whether it is male or female, they also can get themselves penalty and can face imprisonment. So, that is how the law is basically trying to punish any people, any person who is involved in anti-hijab protest as well as not wearing of hijab. Now, this is something that is not, we can say, has been historically practiced in the Iran. If we talk about the practicing of wearing of hijab, if you look at the history of Iran until 1979, the Iran was led by Pahlavi dynasty, where the last ruler was Muhammad Reza Pahlavi, as you can see on the image here. Muhammad Reza Pahlavi was westernized, and he was a kind of what you can call as liberal in nature. He was for the women's right, and he also wanted to create a western influence in the culture of the Iran, in the lifestyle of the Iranian people. And the example of this you can see from the photograph that is taken before 1979, when Iranian women can be seen not wearing hijab. Very few people who wanted by themselves, they were the ones who are wearing hijab. Otherwise, there was no mandatory rule that every woman has to wear it. However, in the 1979, what has happened? Iran has underwent an Islamic revolution that was led by Ruhollah Khomeini. Once the Islamic revolution undertook what you can say took place in the Iran, what has happened? The Ruhollah we can say Khomeini, he made a decree that now every woman and girl in Iran has to mandatorily wear hijab. Not wearing hijab will obviously, they will have to face the punishment and all. That is how the situation have changed from a liberal country having a western influence. It has turned into a kind of theocratic state where the women right has been continuously what we can call as restricted. Now, if we talk about after this, that the hijab debate in the recent times, when it has begun. Now, in 2022, you have a unfortunate killing of a student of Iran who was Kurdish. She was Mahsa Amini, and after the killing of this student, what has happened? A large scale protest broke out in Iran, where the girls and women in large number began to come out on the street, especially those women who were studying in universities, and they began to basically unveil themselves. They began to torn and burn their hijabs, and that is when we can understand the debate become more internationalized in nature. However, in the recent times, we talk about why this particular law was put on hold. The effect was because of the arrest of a well-known Iranian singer called as Parastu Ahmadi. Now, Parastu Ahmadi, she was the one who underwent actually undertaken a kind of, we can say, video streaming on the YouTube, and there she basically has unveiled herself, as you can see from the photo, and it is due to this the morality police of Iran has arrested her. Broadcast quickly went viral, and her subsequent arrest along with her bandmates, they were also arrested. It has sparked public outrage not only in Iran but also internationally, and the authorities have basically to release them after a day later because of the backlash. So, this is the two very important incidents that has happened in the Iran, which has caused hijab debate to again take place in the entire country. Now, after the death of Mahsa Amini 2 years back, we have seen a large such cases in Iran which were earlier unheard of or unseen of, is when the Iranian women have become more resilient, have become more courageous, and they have increasingly defied the strict dress code in the public. The mass protest has become such high in nature that many of the activists, writers, journalists who are working in Iran have signed a statement calling the proposed law simply illegitimate and unenforceable in nature. And Amnesty International, as well as the other human rights organization you talk about, they also have said that the Iranian authorities, they basically are trying to entrench the already suffocating system of repression that is present in Iran, especially against the women population. Now, what has been the response of government in this regard? So, first of all, if you look at the Iran's Prime Minister, that is Masoud Pezeshkian, he has said that he disapproves basically the state's treatment of women, and now this is not something that he is saying after taking the charge in the office. He has said this even before, when he was not the part of government as well, and he believed that he will respect personal freedom when he take the charge in the office, and that is something why he got a lot of support from the young Iranian, especially young Iranian girls and women who are frustrated by years of government imposed restriction. So, in the case where earlier prime ministers were more conservative in nature, the coming up of more liberal leadership in Iran also gives strength to the people of Iran, especially the women and girls, to voice their concern and to ask for the freedom against the wearing and the imposition of hijab rule. Also, if you talk about the former Vice President for Women and Family Affairs, who is Masoumeh Ebtekar, she also has said that if this law is implemented, it will be an indictment of the half of the Iranian population. And the hardliners, however, talk about, if you look at the Iranian government system, at the top you have the theocratic leader who is Mohammad Khamenei. Now, as you can see from the photograph here, Mohammad Khamenei is more conservative. He is the protege of Ruhollah Khomeini, who first of all has brought the hijab rule. So, obviously, the supporters of the religious leader, they are pushing and they are basically pressing the government that this law should be enforced and implemented as soon as possible. But the law's enforcement is not only seeing backlash from the civil society, from the civilian population, but also the president and prime ministers seem to be opposed of the law, at least in its present form. So, this is what has happened in the Iran in past few days. I hope you got the gist of the situations unfolding there. That is all for this particular video. Thank you very much.